What's going on? This is Alex Wilder, and thank you for watching Wild with Wilder. Today I want to talk about a new way that I'm kind of evaluating comic books, especially when it comes to the Veve app. It's something that a lot of creators have done for a long time, but it really hasn't been anything that's really kind of come out in any of the discussions that I've heard in regards to the Veve app. So it's one of the things that I've been doing on a somewhat conscious level, and in some instances subconsciously as well. But I really want to tell you how I break down some of the artistic side to the comic books, and how sometimes the artistic evaluation is the one to go with. So once again, this is not financial advice. This is just my thinking, my thought process. So let's hop right into it. Be sure that you like the video and subscribe. Helps us keep the channel moving. So let's go. The other day, I was really kind of looking into some new comics that were coming out, and it came across my way, X Deaths of Wolverine, just released maybe a week or a couple of weeks ago. And as you can see right here, this is the cover art for this series, mini-series, something like that. I'm not exactly sure what's behind it. So as somebody who's not following along with a comic book series right now, I started thinking of it through the Veve process, and I was like, oh, that's a pretty cool cover. I wonder what other kind of covers it has. And then I started thinking about, wait a minute. I haven't really heard anybody put any weight in their evaluation of comic books, at least not to the degree that I would, of the cover art itself. Say there are several types of values that we can attribute to all the different collectibles, all the comic books, anything that we want. One of them is around like the time frame value. This one was generated in 1938, or it's the first of its kind, or special moment valuations. This was the first appearance of this person. This is when Peter first put on the SpiderMan costume. Stuff like that. There's also, mint numbers and all these other different things, but I never really hear anybody dive into artistic evaluations because it's very subjective. When you're putting an evaluation on something like a piece of art as opposed to something that's numerical, it's so subjective in a lot of ways that people don't think of holding any weight. But I disagree to some extent, because there is, once you get to a point of the universal agreed, this is the best picture, there's other things that kind of factor in of what I consider to be, oh, I value this one higher cover wise than I value this one. And I think that there are going to be some issues in Veve that are going to kind of rise up just because of the cover art. And I just think we haven't hit that shot yet. So let's take a look at a few, and I'll just kind of show you how I personally evaluate cover art for were I to pick. Okay, so a good one to start with is the drop that happened today, Daredevil number 25. Happened earlier. I didn't get any of the drops, but I was able to kind of snipe one in the aftermarket for a pretty low amount of gems, so I'm pretty happy about that. I got the common one. That was the one I could get, so I went ahead and snatched it up. But say that I'm actually looking through the 5 cover art variants. There's your common showing Matt Murdock locked up. Then there's Elektra still wearing her Elektra costume. And then we start to get into the rare black and white of Elektra as Daredevil for the first time, the ultra rare, same thing where it's Elektra dressed as Daredevil for the first time, and then again, but just like the first cover up here, but fully colorized. So what's funny to me is that the best cover art isn't always the most expensive or the highest rarity. Now, I'm not talking about the comics where you have, here's your main cover art and then just different shades of gray, or maybe like this one has a little bit less color and this one has even less until you get all the way to black and white. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about where the art for the most part is different. I think that there needs to be the quality of the art, and one that just feels like I'm not just showing you something, but I'm painting a picture. Almost like if you were talking about different like types of photography, what did you use, like kind of like a cheap kind of like $100 lens, or did you get the nice 85 long lens, the $3,000 one? Like, you know, like the quality of the brush strokes, making it feel a little bit better. And then, so based off that criteria, we're just going to look at Electra, right? This picture is beautiful. It's got style, it's got pop. The angle is interesting, and I'm curious where she's headed, what she's doing, and there's a lot of motion and action. This one is masterful. It gives me a lot of the same energy, but there's that it quality. There's that something else to where I just sort of in my gut, I feel like this one is not just a picture, but it's a portrait. There's weight to it. Now, just thinking about this artistically, of course, there's that aspect. And then there's also what this one shares with the previous one is that this picture tells the story at a glance. The main impacting part of the story at a glance. So in this issue, we know that this is the first time that Elektra dresses up as Daredevil. It's the first time she dons her own version of the costume. Can't remember what the current name is now, but it's a moment. It's fantastic. Now, this artwork is great, but I still gravitate towards this one. This one seems like it's doing both. So once again, for those two criteria, out of all of these, the one that really feels more like artwork than just an image are these two. But this one feels like a little bit more. And this one, these two both seem to tell the main point of the story. These two don't. They give you the beginning. These two give you the impact. And that's what I feel like the moment that kind of collectors want to have. I even heard like a couple of people kind of like downplaying some of the variant issues that they used to do in like the 90s and such. I don't know. I'm not an official comic book collector or anything like that, but I do know how I was impacted and where my eye goes towards. And I do also know that there are some individuals who are just kind of aesthetically minded. When I was younger, I wish I had bought the $20 copy of Final Fantasy 12, the special edition, because it has that nice kind of bronze mixed with black hard cover. Like it presents well in my space. So I'm thinking when more collectors come onto the app, some of them are going to be aesthetically minded as well. So let's jump to another one, just because I think this is a fun topic. I have about 4 of these, so it's going to be fun. Same type of evaluation. Now, Strange Academy #1, this one dropped a few days ago. Oh, I guess it's been like more than that. It's been like 4 or 5 days. Man, time is zooming. So let's kind of go ahead and look at the actual cover art for each of these. So obviously when the artwork for these is so good for every single one of them that really it's like I'm splitting hairs on the one that I really kind of get behind. And what's so cool about it is that you kind of can't go wrong with a special version, because there are different people with the same amount of gym balances that are going to want to do something. And they're all going to want to buy. But for our purposes, so immediately, like, I'm drawn to this one. And maybe this is partly because aesthetically it reminds me more of a painting. But it kind of gives you everything that you want, just like this one. The real story is, who are these new characters? Because they're all like people I don't really know. They're all going to this academy to under the tutelage of Doctor Strange. This is just a snapshot, because these are like the panels, probably the interior of the comic itself. So it feels like, okay, someone took a picture, and in this one, someone painted their portrait. And in this one, someone did a caricature of them. So this one might be a good one to go for too. But it doesn't quite have that kind of hefty, cool factor that some of the other ones do. This one is cool, but yeah, I constantly keep going back to this one. There's just something about this one that sits better. Now, obviously, this is total speculation. It's just kind of where my thinking is at. And a lot of times I like to take these kind of like, think some of this stuff through, almost like a thought exercise, and see if it plays out anywhere in the market and see where it doesn't play out. Because there are some instances where I have gotten, oh, I'm going to get this uncommon, which I think I talked about in my one of my videos. And it's solely because either it's only a couple dollars more and it has way lower rarity because it's an uncommon, or the art is more interesting. And it's like, the art hasn't had a chance to catch wind. So you have the lower rarity, plus you have that unique perspective, that little moment that isn't really addressed anywhere else in the issue or in any other cover variants. So I think that's why I like that one. It just feels like it's telling the story, but in a much more fleshed out manner. So it's the only one of these covers that actually has a real background, like a full background. And I think the characters look the best in that image as well. Next one. This one we'll kind of jump through quick. Amazing Spider-Man number 798. That one was dropped earlier. Let's kind of like look through them. That's a really beautiful cover art. Honestly, you can't go wrong with that. It looks like classic old school Spider-Man. That one looks like a panel. Same thing. That's a great one. This is a cool one too. But I'm going back to this one. Because, okay, when I think about the cover variant, what am I looking for? I'm looking for the point of the story. The point of the story isn't the result. The point of the story is the potential threat, the end of Peter's world by his hands if he turns into this kind of monstrosity. So it's like almost like the shadow of it. And that's the shadow version to where when he actually put on, or when he fused with the symbiote, it's almost like Venom, Peter's shadow self is on this cover, even though he's not. So I think this is the most interesting artistically, storytelling wise. And if I had the extra gems, and if that was one of the plays I was thinking about doing, like if this was one of the comics I was looking about for transparency, is not. That's why I wanted to look at it. This was the one that I would kind of think a couple of thoughts about. Maybe I'll get this version of it if I can afford it. It's the ultra rare. Yeah, ultra rare. And there's been some ultra rares that are like quite a few in the like 125 to 160 range. So if that's the the playing field that you're operating in, maybe you might want to consider some of those. And obviously NFA. One more, Alpha Flight. So this is one I haven't looked at all. So it'll be fun looking at it for the first time. Alpha Flight's really interesting because it kind of like it broadened my horizon when I was like a kid, because I only knew about X-Men. I only knew about the X-Men TV show. Occasionally Spider-Man came out. But in that X-Men TV show, Wolverine goes to Canada and he gets attacked by the Canadian mutant group that he used to run with. And then you start thinking, and I was like, oh, that's right. Because, you know, I'm a kid. I haven't read any of the comics. The whole process, it's global. The mutants are everywhere, and there's an untapped potential of hundreds and hundreds of mutants that we may get to meet. So I always loved when they would meet new mutant characters. So I'm kind of scrolling through these. This one's kind of cool. It reminds me of what was that crazy saga in DC, just from like the cover design. I can't remember if it was an Alex Ross cover or not, but it was one where Blue Beetle kicked everything off and it had that nice, beautiful painted cover. It kind of looks like that, but a little bit thinner, almost like watercolor or something like that. Wow. That might be the one right here. So I know that's kind of a surprise because throughout I was picking like the more painted looking ones, but this one doesn't feel like it has the weight that some of the other ones do. You do see all the characters, but for some reason I'm drawn to this one. It feels like that classic style, but like that little elevated special moment. And it's not the same pose, so it's not like they lifted him from here and put him over here. This one was created specifically for that purpose. So I think that that's really, really cool. Let's see if I'm getting the right one. All right, cool. So that's just another perspective. I think that there hasn't really been much talk and much discussion for how do you evaluate Veve Comics as they are regarded for the actual cover art itself. People will always say, oh, I like this cover art. Oh, I like this aesthetic. But then someone else will be like, yeah, but that's your own opinion. Like, you may like this cover, but more people in the market seem to like this cover. And I think there's a lot of validity to that too, just kind of tearing down the thinking. A lot of people, there's no like numbers backed behind any of the aesthetic kind of hunting. But I might argue too that there is some objectivity to looking at things on the surface level. There are like agreements of what kind of looks good and what kind of doesn't in the fashion industry and in the art industry. Like there's proportions, there's technique, there is a lot of refined thinking that goes into evaluating art. And I think a lot of it can be applied here. You want the people to look a certain way, then you can like address which style do you prefer and things like that. And I think that some of that could potentially come into play here. So part of one of the things that I'm doing is I'm getting some of the covers on comics specifically because of the art on the front, and thinking that there is an actual future boost in value once more aesthetic collectors pop into the Veve space. Just a small little play, not financial advice, and not even giving you any advice at all. It's just something that I'm trying that I think is interesting. And I think it's an interesting topic for discussion as well. And I want to point out one more thing with the deaths of Wolverine. These are the covers that are kind of out right now. I'll see if it lets me show them easily. Oh, that's crazy. I haven't even seen that one before. Oh, no, I'm jumping between issues. That's unfortunate. Okay. Now, when I kind of hopped in the comic book shop to see what they had, the one that was selling for the most was this one so far. Um, and it's, cover of like classic looking Wolverine being mauled to death by classic looking Sabretooth. So you have, okay, if we're looking at the nostalgia vibes, this one is leaking nostalgia all over it. It's showing the hero's downfall, death of character with the person standing over them in triumph. That's very, very popular. The art is also elevated. So even though you have a lot of beautiful covers on this for this particular piece, that one just seems to be pulling people in more. This one's pretty cool too. Him springing from the ground, but it still just looks like a snapshot as opposed to a portrait. But that, I think, fits a little bit into the category that I was trying to talk about. Great artwork, portrait over picture, tells everything you need to know about the story, pulls you in, and it's just a moment all right there. And I think that right there is what we really have to look at. It's like they always say a picture is worth 1,000 words. And I just tend to look for the pictures that I feel have really high, interesting vocabulary. And I think that that's kind of what this is. So you can use this if you want. You can leave something in the comments. Tell me what you're thinking. Be sure to like the video, even if you hated it. Put a don't like. Do we still have that? I don't know. And leave a comment, because any interaction really helps with the growth of the channel, any engagement at all. So leave me a like, leave me a comment, say hey. Say hi to me on Twitter at WildWithWilder, where we're just talking about the same stuff. I'm posting a lot of my findings in my hunt for anime NFTs. So if you don't want to wait for me to make my next video, I do tend to retweet some cool artists and some cool projects that I think are just a ton of fun. And some of them that I'm probably going to get involved with here in the future. So definitely thank you so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button for me. And what else? Nothing. Peace. Have a great day.